Late-night Uber rides are supposed to be safe, but sometimes they turn into nightmares. These true horror stories will make you question just how safe ride-sharing really is. From silent passengers who seem inhuman, to drivers with sinister intentions, and rides that go off course into the unknown. These chilling experiences will leave you with one terrifying question. Are you really alone in the car? Story 1. The Silent Passenger. David had been driving for Uber for nearly a year. It was an easy way to make extra money, and he liked the freedom of picking up rides whenever he wanted. That night, he was working a late shift, picking up passengers in the quieter parts of the city. Most of his rides were uneventful, until he got a request from an unfamiliar part of town. The ride begins. He arrived at a dark street with only one flickering streetlight. A man stood on the sidewalk, dressed in a black hoodie, his face shadowed. David rolled down the window and asked, "Are you waiting for an Uber?" The man didn't respond but silently got into the back seat, closing the door without a word. David checked the app. No destination was entered. "Where are you headed?" he asked. No response, just silence. A chill ran down David's spine. Something about the man's presence felt wrong. The air inside the car seemed heavier, colder. His passenger just sat there, motionless, breathing softly. The unsettling realization. David hesitated but decided to start driving anyway, hoping the man would eventually speak up. He checked the rearview mirror. The man was sitting completely still, staring straight ahead. Then suddenly he smiled. Not a normal smile. A slow, wide, eerie grin stretched across his face, revealing teeth that looked too sharp. David's pulse skyrocketed. "Hey man, are you okay?" No response. He gripped the wheel tighter. Something about this ride felt wrong, unnatural. The vanishing passenger. David turned his head slightly, just for a second, to glance at his passenger directly. But when he did, the back seat was empty. His heart dropped. He hadn't stopped the car, he hadn't heard the door open. The man was just gone. Slamming on the brakes, David scrambled out of the car, panting, looking around the empty street. Nobody was there. He checked his Uber app. No record of a completed ride. No passenger name. No trip history. He never drove that late again. Story 2. The Wrong Destination. Megan was heading home from a friend's house late at night. She'd had a few drinks, so she did the responsible thing. She called an Uber. The driver's name was Thomas. The car was a black sedan, and it arrived within minutes. Everything seemed normal. The unnoticed red flags. Megan got in and immediately noticed something strange. The driver had a divider separating the front and back seats. It wasn't unusual for rideshare drivers to have these, but this one was solid black, meaning she couldn't see into the front. "Hi," she said. No response. A little weird, but maybe he wasn't in the mood to talk. She glanced at the app. Her destination was already entered, and the car started moving. She leaned back and closed her eyes. The wrong turn. After about 10 minutes, she opened her eyes and realized something was wrong. The route on her phone didn't match where they were going. They were headed out of the city, toward a deserted industrial area. Megan's heart pounded. "Hey, I think you're going the wrong way," she called out. The driver didn't respond. She knocked on the divider. Nothing. Panic set in. She checked her phone and no service. The escape. Megan's breathing quickened. She tried the door. Locked. Her pulse was racing. The driver was speeding up. Where was he taking her? Then she remembered a trick she had seen online. She pretended to call someone, loudly saying, "Yeah, Dad, I'm almost home. The Uber driver is great, right? You see my location on Find My iPhone, right?" At that moment, the car slowed down. And then, the driver suddenly pulled over and unlocked the door. "Get out," he said, his voice monotone. Megan didn't hesitate. She jumped out, slammed the door, and ran. When she turned back, the car was already speeding away. She reported the driver to Uber, but when they looked into it, they told her no driver named Thomas was registered that night. No black sedan. No trip history. To this day, Megan has no idea who picked her up or where they were taking her. Story 3. The driver who knew too much. James was coming home from a late shift at work. He called an Uber as usual, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. The driver's name was Alex, and when the car pulled up, it looked like any other Uber ride. The ride begins. James got in and greeted the driver. "Hey, Alex, how's your night going?" Alex smiled in the rearview mirror. "Oh, it's going great, James. Been a long time since I picked you up." James frowned. "Have we met before?" Alex chuckled. "Oh yeah, I remember you. I've given you a few rides before. Your usual pickup spot is by that little coffee shop, right?" James felt a cold chill run down his spine. He had never used Uber from the coffee shop. The creepy details. As the ride continued, Alex started talking about things he shouldn't know. "Your apartment is nice, by the way. I bet you still leave your window unlocked at night." "Huh?" James's heart pounded. "And your girlfriend, what's her name again?" "Sarah. I see her walking home sometimes. Such a nice girl." James's mind was racing. Who was this guy? How did he know so much about his life? The terrifying ending. James made a decision. He forced a smile and said, "Oh yeah, actually, can you drop me off at my friend's house instead? It's just a couple blocks up." The driver hesitated but eventually pulled over. James got out, but he didn't go into the house. Instead, he hid behind a tree watching. The Uber didn't leave. The driver was sitting there, waiting. James called the cops. When they arrived, the car was gone. But when he reported it to Uber, no driver named Alex had been assigned to his ride. James never used Uber again. Which story creeped you out the most? Tell us in the comments. Bell like, subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss a new horror video. Share with a friend who loves scary stories.